Hello, my name's Anastasia, welcome back to my channel. It's currently 21st of March and it's my first day self-isolating without anyone else in the house because my flatmates have left. So I'm going crazy and I was like, what can I do with all of this energy I have? Film a video! Hey, that sounds fun! This is something I'm hoping I will be doing often enough during the next 4 weeks or so, hopefully, because there's not much to do. It's definitely been a hard couple of weeks and a very uncertain time where everyone doesn't know what's gonna happen and some people can't go home, including me. The fact is we have a lot of time in our hands and we don't necessarily have to sit around and mope about it or go on Twitter and tweet about how boring this is and how lazy we feel. We can still do stuff like write something, read something, get in contact with people you haven't been in contact with for a while, learn a new language, start a new series, do whatever, just don't sit around and feel sad, make something with your time. And what I'm doing with my time is a review. So recently I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Hopefully I said that correctly. So this is my first venture into Japanese fiction and I actually think it was a pretty successful one. It's definitely a different way of writing that I've been accustomed to, but it was very interesting. Before the Coffee Gets Cold is set in a small cafe in Tokyo in which there is a rumor that customers can travel back in time, which is not apparently a rumor as we find out the moment we start reading this book. The only thing is, there are certain rules when you go back in time. First rule is that you have to sit in a specific chair in the cafe in order to be transported back in time, which is proving to be a bit difficult because there is a lady always sitting in that chair. The character's only chance to actually go back in time is to wait for her until she decides to go to the bathroom. It's definitely a really weird concept and one that gets explained kind of during the book, but it's very interesting and very funny because you're basically looking at a woman and waiting for her to go pee. Second rule is that you can only visit people that have visited the cafe and that are in the cafe when you are transported back in the future, in the past. Third rule is that you cannot move from the chair while you are in the past. Fourth is that however hard you may try or want to, you cannot change the present. And fifth is that there is a time limit. When you go back to the past, you need to drink your coffee before it gets cold. Hence the title of the book. Before the Coffee Gets Cold was a very interesting story. It's actually split between 4 different stories. It's about 4 different people that try to go back in the past to meet someone. The first story is about 2 lovers that are separated because the man is traveling back to America. The second one is about a couple where the man has Alzheimer's and cannot remember his wife, who is a nurse. The third one is about 2 sisters, of which one has died. And the fourth one is about a mother and a child who have never met. Personally, my favorite one was a tie between the Alzheimer's couple and the young lovers, because those were the ones that did not specifically, they didn't have a resolution, but they kind of ended in a hopeful note and you knew that not everything might turn out great, but it was a great way to end their stories, while the other ones got a little bit more complicated and they didn't make sense in certain points. So I wasn't as satisfied with them as I was with the first 2. Another thing I actually realized about not Japanese fiction but this specific book is that you don't get a definite ending. The author just gives you a hint that there might be a possible future in the works or a possible resolution, but he never hints that this is what's gonna happen. it just ends with the characters a bit more hopeful or with a more positive outlook, which I certainly appreciated, and I think it's something that everyone kind of needs right about now. So the fact that it ended with a bit more positivity, even though it said that nothing was solved, nothing was made better, it's just the people found the good side of things and became more hopeful. I think there's a lot to take from this story when it comes to that, especially during this very confusing time. As for the writing, it was very interesting because it was not on the descriptive side. The thing is, and I'm not sure if anyone else that's read the book has actually felt the same way, but it reminded me a lot of a screenplay for anime. I'm not just saying that because it's Japanese fiction, it's just the way the characters reacted, the way it was written. It was like an anime was taking place in my head. The characters would react very intensely for no reason, and it would read like a screenplay because it wasn't very descriptive. It didn't describe a lot what the characters were feeling, just a few of their thoughts, which could very easily be a voiceover while, you know, the characters were speaking. However, from what I know, this book has been made into a movie, which I have watched, and again, they did react a little bit over the top, and it could have been a great anime. So just putting it out there, it would be a very emotional and great anime. While I appreciated the story and I appreciated the writing, there were some stuff that I didn't necessarily like the fact that the characters kept repeating stuff that were obvious. They kept asking the same question again and again and again, and you would never get the appropriate answer because they would be repeating the question. So there would be a whole page of them asking a question, getting the same answer, asking the question again, getting the same answer, being surprised and repeating the answer. And because I'm very bored while being here, I will show you how that was like. What is this? Oh, that's actually toast. We've had that for a while. Is this toast? Mm-hmm. It is a toast. This is toast. Yeah, it's still a toast. Yeah. This is toast. And now that I've embarrassed myself, let's move forward. Going back to the writing, while it was very easy to read, it was very repetitive at times. So I would see the same paragraph again and again, or I would see the same sentence. It wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. I like my writing very descriptive. I like to get inside the characters' heads. I like a lot of backstory. Of course, you can't really do that with barely 200 pages of a book, but I think for me, it took away from the story. I also think that the last story was the one that took away from my enjoyment of the book the most, because it was the one that did not pan out the way I imagine it. So basically, you have a mother and a daughter that will never meet because the mother dies while giving birth. There is an indication during the book that the daughter really wants to see the mother, and then towards the end of the book, when the mother actually goes to the future, it's the most awkward meeting ever, and they don't say anything of much significance to me. There are some things that were heartwarming, of course, but again, it could have been done in another way where it would be more emotional. It was a very emotional story, not handled in a very emotional way. It was a bit of a very cold, to the point way to say this story, which took away from it, in my opinion. And last thing I want to mention is, and spoiler alert for this one, so if you haven't read the book, maybe skip the next minute and a half. Going back to the woman I mentioned that is always sitting in the chair, apparently she's a ghost. That's what they tell. She is always sitting in that chair day and night. She never moves. She's always reading this book. She is basically the entire mystery of this book, because I don't know, like, I'm not expecting the book to kind of explain why how the time traveling is happening, because again, it's 200 pages. I wasn't expecting anyone to give me a huge explanation. But there is this woman and she's a ghost. We get nothing on her, like no backstory, no how that happened. Like, we get like a really brief explanation on how that happened, but we never get a resolution on that. I'm like, so what? Is she gonna die there? Has anyone been there before her? Is she just there? It was never answered. So by the end of the book I was like, cool, but what about her? So that question was always in my head and was never answered, and that kind of left me feeling baffled. All in all, this was a really enjoyable read, a really fast read, and even though it's not one of my favorite books or something that I might go back to anytime soon, it was a very hopeful story and it had positive undertones, something that again I find that is very useful during this time and that everyone should read. It had some heartwarming moments in it and some moments that I was like, oh my god, this is so cute. Sometimes that I teared up, so it was a pretty beautiful book. That was it for me. I will see you in the next one. Take care.